Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamine Tinamane. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharane, Nivase Sasunyavadi Prashkati Desatarane. Hare Krishna. I also offer my respects to His Holiness Gour Govinda Maharaj, who is a true Vaishnava, pure and very, very powerful. On the day of his departure from this world, there was a meeting, a meeting of the sannyas ministry, and at that meeting there was one elderly disciple of Srila Prabhupada who was asking to be sannyas, wanted to be put on the sannyas list. So he was very elderly. At that time it seemed elderly. He was probably 68 years old. And now that doesn't seem quite as elderly, being that I'm 74. But in any case, he wanted to take sannyas, but he wasn't really at this point connected with ISKCON. So the sannyas minister wanted to put him on a five-year waiting list. So I didn't think that was a great idea because he was so elderly. I could understand why the minister wanted to put him on that list, because again, he wasn't really connected with ISKCON. So, but I thought that you can't put a man who's so elderly on a 5-year waiting list. If we don't think it's best to give him sannyas from ISKCON, that's one thing, but you can't put him on such a waiting list. So when the meeting, that was what I thought. So after the meeting was concluded, I was speaking to Maharaj, His Holiness Gour Govinda Maharaj, and I said, that would be so discouraging to be put on such a long waiting list when you're so elderly. And his response, yes, we have to encourage the devotees. That is what it means to be a Vaishnava, to encourage the devotees. And then, so that really struck with me, and I consider that a guiding principle, that instruction that I was fortunate to participate in with Maharaj. I take that as a guiding principle in my life to this day. So then it was time for him to go downstairs. The meeting was in the room right above the room he was staying, and his servant wasn't there. So I took the opportunity to use my hand to help him go down the stairs, and Maharaj very kindly allowed me to place his weight on my hand as he was going down the stairs, because he was a little bit disabled at that time. And then such an unexpected and unfortunate event took place later in the evening. I was with Naranjana Swami, His Holiness Naranjana Swami, and Dhanada Maharaj, and we heard the news. Someone brought us the news that Maharaj had left this world. It was such a shock. And I remember Naranjana Swami saying, "Oh no, he was my hope." He was so shaken, and we all ran over, and then we saw Maharaj, and he was sitting up in the bed, and all the devotees gathered, and to see this, it was actually so amazing, because Maharaj was no longer in his body, but his body was glowing, and it was so beautiful. It was so incredibly beautiful, and it was. I didn't know what to make of it. There was a kirtan going on, but what struck me the most was that how beautiful Maharaj looked. He was clearly fully transcendental and gorgeous and effulgent, and it was apparent, and it was so striking. So the kirtan went on, and then Maharaj was given darshan, final darshan of the deities in Mayapur, and he was brought by car to. He was placed in the car and brought to Bhubaneswar, where he was placed in samadhi, and that was so striking. How beautiful His Holiness Gour Govinda Maharaj looked. In life, he always reminded me. His face reminded me, in some ways, of a little boy, even though he was certainly elder to me, and I didn't treat him like a little boy. One time, in Maharaj's room, when I had visited Bhubaneswar, he called me into his room all alone, and he read. He was reading some of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam to me, and he was translating it. He was reading from Sanskrit books because I had sent him many Sanskrit books because I was in Vrindavan. I sent him the Sandarbhas, photocopies of the Sandarbhas, and some perhaps rare books. So anyway, he called me into his room and he was reading some of the 10th canto to me. It was relatively intimate pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna, and he was reading that and translating the commentaries of the acharyas to me. It was very, very kind. And then when I was when the session was over, when it was time for me to leave, I offered my obeisances and I touched his feet, and he said, "No, no, no, we are we are basically we are God brothers." And I said, "Maharaj, I don't think like that." I wasn't shy in that sense. Such an exalted soul, and beautiful in life, and beautiful even after he left his body, showing that it was clearly transcendental. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about Maharaj, and Hare Krishna. Now I have to turn this off. Hare Krishna.